I recently posted a video about the Asus Ally, and within the video I showed some emulators running, which included Nintendo Switch. And I've had few people just reach out to me privately, asking about how do you set that up? Where do you find the files? Where do you find things? Now, there's only a limit to what I can share because there's like a legal thing. You've got to be very careful what you say, what you talk about. So I'm not going to share where you can get the games. You'll have to do some searches. For instance, no one's given me anything. I've had to source things myself. So it's almost like the more determined you are, the more you'll find it. The one thing I would say is Reddit's a great source. So I would possibly read multiple forums and find the little snippets where you feel you trust what someone's saying, and that will lead you down the right path. So that's all I would say is maybe just put Switch ROMs and then Reddit and then work your way from there. Because for me to give links out, it gets a bit of a grey area. It's a bit of an area I don't really want to go near. Plus, of course, if you publicly start saying, well, the games are, all of a sudden the websites keep getting taken down and it's an issue. So the emulator itself, the problem is there's two main emulators, Yuzu and I don't know how you pronounce it, Ryujinx, and both have been taken down. So I had a hard time myself sourcing the emulators. Every time I was trying to get them, I was just having problems after problem, just trying to get the entire batch. So in the end, I found EmuDeck, and it was just by chance because I was looking at SteamOS. So this EmuDeck works on SteamOS. If you've got a Steam Deck, it works on Windows and Linux, and also because the Ally is Windows based anyway, you'd literally just pick the Windows installer. The great thing about EmuDeck is it has the ability to install all the emulators. So whether it's GameCube, Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, all the way up to the Switch. And you can pick and choose which ones you want. You can just have them all if you want, just because it gives you options later. Or you can just pick the ones you want. And it's simple as that. Now, there's a process to each emulator to get working. I'm not going to go through every single one here. But again, it can get a bit technical and frustrating. But again, the more you want to do it, you'll figure it out, especially YouTube. So if you put EmuDeck tutorials and things, you get really good help. I'm going to try and guide people through myself. But, the Switch part can get a bit confusing even for me. So this is going to be a fresh install on my PC, which is the same as the Steam Deck anyway. Steam Deck, I already have it installed. It's easier for me to do it here. Yeah, so I've got, at the moment, I've got all the emulators installed independently. So I've got my own batch. We don't need that. We got to go to, if I show my desktop icons, and then we can get the emulators up, and then we take the emulator down. So I had them all set up independently here. All the files open. But anyway, so we got them all independently here, and they work for the most part. But what we do it the right way through EmuDeck. So just type EmuDeck, EMU, and then deck, all in one word. And that will take you to this website here. Now, if you have a problem seeing it, because maybe the screen's too small and things, just put it in full screen. So if you're on TikTok, just press enter full screen. If you're on YouTube, of course, it should be clear anyway. So here we just click download. Now you've got the choices here: SteamOS, Linux, Chimera OS, which I think is a Linux-based system anyway, Windows and Android. Of course, if you've got a Steam Deck, you'd go SteamOS. Because we've got a Windows PC, and we've also got an Ally, which is Windows-based, we're just going to go with Windows. Then you've got two sides here. You've got an EmuDeck Early Access, which is with a Patreon, which you have to pay. It allows it to be game mode, effectively. So I haven't got that, but it's really for people who want an emulated console, for instance, or a computer. So you turn your computer on, it goes straight to emulators with nothing else. We just want to download for free. So I've already got the file. Where did I put it? Well, we'll just have to get it again, I think. Oh, it's done me in, isn't it? So, yeah, forget it. So then we'd open that and then just run it. So we could double click to open, and now it's doing its thing. It's going to start installing some information. It's literally starting to unpack, and now it's going to install the emulators you need. We detected slow. Do you want to change to faster ones? Yes. You want to check? Yeah. So just approve things. It's just it needs to get under your if you know, deeper into your system really to be able to control some things. Yeah. So sometimes what might happen, it might have a pop-up open as well that you might not be aware of, and that'd be on a Steam Deck as well. Sometimes things open in the background, the little plugins and all sorts of things it may need. But yeah, it's going to be it's just a whole process really. You just got to let it do its thing. It's going to download plugins that it needs. It's going to and all the emulators, and there's quite a few emulators. But I don't think it takes particularly long. So effectively, EmuDeck is the back end. So it's the thing that installs everything you need. Then we're going to want EmulationStation, which it offers us later. EmulationStation then becomes the front end, so where it looks really beautiful. A bit like where I've shown this, you can get different themes. So for instance, if I choose to have that theme, or I can change to a different theme, as you can see there, if we go on, there's Nintendo 64. And there's a level of customization within it. I'm not going to go on that here. But of course, we just want to see it up and running with the Switch. So with the Switch, the real problem where it gets a bit technical is it needs its firmware. So effectively, the operating system that's running on the Switch, it needs to have that information. Otherwise, it can't launch a game. It also needs to have product keys. Now, with some emulators, the product keys are related to specifically to decrypting the ROM, the game. With this one, with the Switch, the keys have to match the firmware, which I didn't know at first, which is why I was going around in circles. So, for instance, the most recent firmware for the Switch, I cannot find the product keys for it. So I'm like, I'm going to have to use the one previous, and then it worked. So that's what you got to do. So we could do easy mode, custom mode. I've never done easy. I'll try and make it big so that people can see. Oh, that's not even made it any easier, is it? So again, you just have to go full screen if you need to be able to see it clearer. We want custom mode. Next at the bottom, collecting drive names. So it's going to figure out what hardware have you got on your computer. Have you got an SD card? Have you got a hard drive? We will put it on F. Let's put it on F. So here we're getting asked questions now, like what device is it actually you're running? Is it a Windows handheld? Is it a Windows PC? Steam Deck? Ally? I think it's more just because the user interface. Of course, mine's going to be Windows PC, but everybody else would do Steam Deck or Ally. Now, this is it. Look, emulators and tools for Windows PC. And this is where it's beautiful because, like I said, this one where it says Ryujinx, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it says Nintendo Switch. It's near impossible now to get that emulator. But through EmuDeck, you can, which I think is a blessing. Like, truly. We want Dreamcast. Oh, this is interesting. So sometimes you pick one, your favorite one, and it will say, right, there's a conflict because two emulators do the same thing. So which one would you want? In this instance, for the Sega Dreamcast, it's saying RetroArch has these pros. It has achievements. It also has bezels and shaders. Flycast has better performance. Well, to be honest, performance is going to be far more interesting to me than anything else because you don't want anything stuttering or corrupt. Yeah. It's, you know, I just think it's better to have as many as you can, in all honesty. So emulator and tools config. We're going to go again. You can have to. This one just didn't have the switch enabled, so I'm just clicking it here. I'm pretty happy with that. You can always add some more later. So configure auto saves. If enabled, your game state will save on exit. That's a good feature. Didn't used to have that back in the day. So it depends if you want to play games as they were. That's just an auto save feature, I think, absolutely. Retro achievements. I have made a login with that, but you don't need to at this stage. You can go. You can do that in your configuration later when you start delving a bit more. For now, we're just skipping the bottom right. The bezels, you can either have boring black or you can maybe have the color, but really that isn't the color. It's the it's pretty cool. It has the image of the console, you know, so it looks like a Mega Drive on either side. It's like split and it's beautiful. It's really good. So I'd say put them bezels on. Black's boring. Now you can change the resolution of your screen. 4:3 was what it was back in the day. 3:2, smaller bars, but stretches the image. I don't really like images stretched personally. So I do tend to keep native resolution, really, just to keep the best image I can have. Although that does look a bit thin, doesn't it? Oh, that's a tricky one now. But actually, that one's looking more like it. This is slight horizontal distortion. You can't win. I'm going to play around too much with that. I normally go 4:3. I'm going to go with 4:3. Same with Nintendo Switch, default or you can do an even thinner one. It says real SNES resolution, but I don't see that. It wouldn't be the real SNES resolution if you only had a 4:3 TV. I'm going to do 16:9. This is the 64 in the Dreamcast, so you can try and widescreen the image, and I'd rather have that. Same with the GameCube, let's widescreen it. This is shaders. It tries to add sort of like a filter over the top of your games. I'm going to just avoid it. It's something people can add if they choose preference. For me, it just muddies the picture. Front ends for Windows PC. Front ends for Windows PC. You can just have them all. Mine's all ticked. I'll just go over all of them because they're not the ones I'm really going to be using. This is what you really want. EmulationStation default theme. And sometimes it doesn't really do it, but you've got so many options of how you want your games to appear. Let me see if I make this bigger. Will it be better? So it says, how do you want it to seem when you're trying to scroll through your games when you open EmulationStation? So I go with Iconic. I had a different one before. So Iconic's the one I have. Whether it installs it is another thing, we'll see. Pegasus default. I'm not really going to use Pegasus, so it doesn't matter. Here you can set the resolution of your games. So 720p for some games, it was their native resolution. I'm probably just going to stick to full at 1080p because the emulators are not a lot of time they're not streamlined, so they might demand more resources from your devices. And I think especially if you're playing on like one of the handhelds, 720p on a handheld should be perfectly fine. But you can mess with it. If your game stutters, then drop it down. So that's done everything. It gives us a little refresh across the side here, saying what have you enabled, what have you disabled, what are the settings you want, and literally just finish. Let it do its thing. So now it's literally installing everything as we asked it. I'm not sure really whether it would do the exact theme I chose for EmulationStation, but it's literally not very hard. So while we're waiting, I think this is an important part because there's no point doing it after the fact. If you go to, I think getting firmware should be fine for people. Because, for instance, if you wanted a PlayStation firmware for the PS3, because you need that for the emulator, PlayStation actually offer that as a free download through their website because PS3 users may need it to reinstall their devices. So I don't think firmwares are an issue, in all honesty. So this website's called prodkeys.net. Again, if you've got the screen bigger, you'll be able to see the title in my address bar there. In fact, I might even be able to zoom in on it. Oh, it won't. It's only going to zoom in on this part. Prodkeys.net anyway. So then you want to go to firmwares in the top right corner. Now, like I said, at the moment, it says version 19.0.1. It doesn't have this MD5 hash. Now, I don't know what the hell that is. It must be to do with registration. And when you go down to look at product keys, for instance, if I was to click, you can click product keys at the top here, actually. But it is actually a link just above them, just above this little table. It says you may also like the prod keys, which is what this one is. So we can open that, and you can download them. And it works perfect then. So I'll show you where to put them once we get the emulator running. But it only has 19.0.0. So the most recent firmware doesn't have keys, which means it's not going to work. So just get the one, make sure you've got the firmware that matches the prod keys, otherwise you definitely ain't getting anywhere. And you're definitely going to need those files. So grab them, and then you've got, once we install them, we've got a functional switch. At that point, you will have to resource some games. Always worth just grabbing one. Once you find them, it's worth just grabbing one first just to get the thing working because, you can sit there downloading all day and you may never get it working. If it's outside your expertise, it'll be a bit of an issue. And some of the websites, to be honest, just be very careful with websites. Because some have pop-ups and all sorts of stuff, Yeah, I don't want to say too much about websites. I think it's important people do some research. But you'll find some incredibly, some great ones, though, that can have multiple systems. So downloading RetroArch. I think RetroArch is the one that has the achievements, I think. So it may seem complicated, but effectively you're installing EmuDeck and you're just saying yes to everything, really. And then a lot of the questions were just about customization. What do you want your screen to look? Do you want the screen stretched a little bit so it takes up more of your screen? Do you not like to have it in a square? Again, that's going to be personal preference. Do you want to filter over the front of the screen to make it look like back in the day? It's like an artificial way of making it look a bit like a CRT TV. But it looked a bit aggressive to me. So it was like, that's just muddy in the picture. So I'd rather not. Like I said, there's another feature there where you can have achievements. Now, I'm not a big achievement hunter or anything, but after I installed it on my Ally, I went back and then just quickly signed up for the achievement website because I thought, that's actually quite a useful little feature there. I may as well jump in and grab some get achievements as I play some games. So some of the emulators actually are a lot easier to install. For instance, if you was to use the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo one, you don't have to add any other files apart from the ROMs. So you would literally just get the ROM files, which is the games, and you don't even have to extract them. So a lot of them come compressed in a zip file. So you would just right click it, extract all, and then that would give you the ISO, which is a disk image, or this other file, whatever corresponds with the emulator. But with those two specifically, you can keep them compressed. You actually don't have to do anything with them. So you would get the file and you'd literally just put it in the corresponding folder, which I'll show in a little while. And then it just appears on the emulator, and then you would just literally just click play. And with EmuDeck, if you run it through the right software, it should run fine, but you still may have to do some adjustments. I think with especially the Steam Deck, I think it runs perfectly fine straight away, like the button configurations. I think with the Ally, you may have some issues, and it'll be about just learning how to edit configuration for the controls, really, which is a bit annoying because I don't like mapping controls myself. It's especially the back button. I was pressing the B for back, and it just kept bringing up the menu. It was acting like B was the start button, and it was driving me crazy because I thought, that's just nuts. I don't want to do that every time. I just want to be able to go back through the menus. I ended up fixing it, but if you ask me now, and I wouldn't remember how I did it. It was a whole process for me trying to figure out how I'm mapping stuff. But yeah, aside from that, if you have got a ROG Ally, it's like you can go into gamepad files in the Asus software, and I did that yesterday. And I've assigned some macros where you press the button per button on the back, and then I've got it set to the start button, the one with the 3 lines in the top. That does the I think I've got that set to like Xbox button, so it brings up any menu relating to the Xbox button if you had a control pad. I took away one of the features and I've made it a screenshot. So if you press the right D-pad with that, it takes a screenshot, which I think is good. So controller configuration, this is important, a bit like what I just said. It's literally just telling us that it's really important that you open EmulationStation where the emulators are going to be played. You open it in Steam, because Steam has its own sort of inputs, so it can control the control pad. Whereas if you was to open the software outside of Steam, you may not have access to control features. So just open it in Steam. It's simple anyway. It just says you would a Steam game, to be honest. You would need to copy your games manually. So we're going to click that. Open emulation folder. Where do I copy? Once you place your files in the folder. Well, so they're not telling me where the folder is. You're gonna have to close it, not close it, minimize the image at this point. So we got the minimize button at the top. Then we need to figure out where I put it. So I said F, didn't I? And it'll be called F drive, but then it'll be straight away. It'll be emulators, emulation, right? So that's where this is it now. This whole feature here is emulation. It says BIOS, ROMs, saves, storage, and tools. And this is where it threw me off. And I just started throwing the files everywhere, trying to get it working, in all honesty. So what we'll do is I'll open up my folder. So this is my ROMs. New emulators. Just to show it working. For instance, I'll put a Nintendo game in. Super Nintendo ROMs. Let's just do Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World. So we'll put that. So you go BIOS, ROM, saves. We want ROMs. And then you've got a whole list of every machine, pretty much. It's not necessarily the emulator, but the machine. So that makes it a lot easier because you don't have to remember what emulator you're supposed to be using at this stage. So because it's Super Nintendo, I just want to go to, I think it's under SNES. It maybe, SNES. SNES. And then literally all we do is paste it in there. I better turn my controller on really just to make sure that we can get that running. So that's that one. But we obviously most people are going to want the Switch. So we'd go down to Switch and then ROMs. I can't get Lego Horizon Adventures working at the moment, but I think that's the BIOS. I think it's not compatible with the current BIOS. I need the one up because it's a more recent game. I don't want any game that's too big. Tell you what we do Super Mario Brothers Wonder because that's a recent game as well, so it's quite cool that it's available. So we'd scroll down through the list. Again, if you're doing this, open multiple tabs so you don't have to keep going back and forward. Keep the whole list available and then where your ROMs open as well. So that's all I've done. Got one tab open for the emulator side where it's saying where the ROMs are, which is your games, and it's given us a list of all the platforms. Of course, I want the Switch, so we just scroll down until we see Switch. Switch is here. Now, I've got my other tab open, which is my hard drive that stores my ROMs. And we've right-clicked it, copy. If you're using the Steam Deck, you'd obviously just hold the button down, I think, and then the copy should come up. Then we're just literally just pasting it in. It'll take a little bit of time because it's bigger files. So the older emulators, like the Super Nintendo, the files are like kilobytes. They're like ridiculous. You could literally have 200 files and it would be done within seconds. So it's literally bosh. But with the bigger games, you've got more storage, a bit more selective. So this is Super Mario Brothers Wonder. At this point, it's not going to work, but I'm going to show why it's not going to work. And hopefully I'll be able to get it working. I say hopefully because, to be honest, I've only done it on the Steam Deck twice, on this Asus one twice. And both times gave me a blinging headache. But I've now figured out roughly where I'm supposed to put things. It makes it a little bit more easy for me, but even then, it may be easier for me to actually find it on here. It will be easier for me to find it on here, I think. I don't think I can actually, because I think it's a whole process. We'll see if we can figure it out. So we go back to the emulator. So far we've got a Super Nintendo game and we've got a Nintendo Switch game. So that's right. Now we got, how would you like to launch your games? Steam library. So there'll be just links to random games in your Steam library, or EmulationStation. And it says EmulationStation is recommended for huge libraries. I also think it's recommended in total because it looks class. So we want EmulationStation because that's that front end where it looks really cool. It's not. Why has it got to play me about? So for instance, where it looks like that. So you'd get the menu. Oh, it's not. I don't know if it's shown. Rather than just little boring boxes. So this is a video that's popped up weirdly enough. How would you like to launch your games? We've done that. So we want to launch the ROM manager now. Emulation hotkeys. Why is it doing all this? I think it's just skipped the whole process, to be honest. What's left? So there is a process to go through with this. I'm going to show. Okay, welcome to SRM. So what it'll do, it'll figure out who you are, and it's linking you to your Steam account. And here you can just pick all of them, or you do what you want. Really, it's just what's going to be available on your non-Steam game section. You don't really need individuals because you're going to open it with EmulationStation anyway, So I would just do EmulationStation, and you can do Pegasus and emulators. You can do that. Then we want to do add games, and then we want to do pass. So add games was in the bottom corner there after you've selected the three boxes, the first three boxes really. So you keep excluding the top corner. I've probably gone too fast. So effectively they were all selected before. So what we want, so that's all selected. This tab with the blue, click it off. Now nothing's selected. Now we want to now we want to click the first one, the second one, and the third one. So that's EmulationStation, Pegasus, and emulators. Then we're going to go add games at the bottom, and now it's pass, which means it's like finding those games, anything related to it. So this is cool. It's a bit more intricate, really, but it finds covers to your games really, and you go for a whole process with this. But I'm not going to do that. Usually, if you select Super Nintendo, for instance, you can have covers to all of them, which is a whole process. But so save to Steam. We're looking up the top here. Done adding, removing entries. Once it says that, you can literally close the whole thing now. I'm going to minimize this because sometimes you're going to want to go back. So, for instance, BIOS checker here, it will tell us that none of them are, like, for instance, the switch, which is here, firmware missing. We know that because we haven't even done it. So it literally tells us which ones are going to need a firmware, which is the BIOS. So we're going to come out of that. And we will now open Steam. So we know the game's not going to work, right? But we're going to show why it doesn't work. This is useful. So what I'll do big picture mode. Because big picture mode is what really would be happening. If you was on a Switch, you're going to go big picture mode. Not a Switch, the Alley. So it should be here somewhere. Where's EmulationStation? That's the problem. Right, so it's probably going to be in your games, but non-games. A menu is what we want. Library. So if you scroll over all the way to non-Steam game, it might even be on collections. If you go collections, where are we? Emulation. Yeah. So you want to go to collections over here, and then we want emulation. And as you can see, if you go over here, we've got EmulationStation there. You probably could have picked a different cover. Once we've done that, it will always be available at the front of your library because it's the last thing you played. So we do that. I think what we do first, just before we quickly jump into the Super Nintendo, the Switch, I just want to show the Super Nintendo just so we know it's working. I'm hoping it's got the configuration done right because sometimes, whatever it said there, it said to quit. You had no other options. So it's literally just restarting with a new configuration. But sometimes you'll find keys are not binded properly from one emulator to the other, and I'm hoping it works, but if not, you have to go manually into the emulator tools and options and just pick it. So because I picked this front end, this is what it's given straight away. So I'm happy they installed it. Now what they've done, every time you add a game to a specific console, the console would then appear here. So if you have only got one set of ROMs for like one console, you only get one console appear. So really want to get the menu up, start. So you want the start menu here. Then we would do, I think scraper. And you'd pick, so you'd scrape out all games, and then you want these systems. I'm going to do both because there's not many. But if there was loads, I'd probably just do the one I want at the moment because it's easier. Then we scroll down and do start. Now what it'll do covers. I'm trying to think for the life of me why I'm not getting the cover here. Let me just do it. Start, and then we're going to want UI settings. And I'm going to download the theme because I don't think it's downloaded the theme properly. So we go theme downloader, proceed. It'll come up with a whole list of all the themes. And we're going to do the iconic one because that's the one I want. I don't think it's downloaded the covers. Fetch updates, updating theme. And then back. And you can do all sorts of things here. Like for instance, you can add like a favorite section and all sorts. I don't know why it's not coming up with the covers. We'd have to think about that later. I don't want to dwell too much. So, like for instance, as you can see, Super Nintendo, I put the one ROM file in the game, in the thing, and it's come up with it straight away on the theme. I'm not sure it's doing the right theme though. I don't know. So we start it, we load it. And like I say, the easiest two emulators to get running is the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive. So as I said, the bezels. This is the bezels I was talking about. If you add their own bezels, you get this cool trick. So just remember, when you play Nintendo games, you do have to press the opposite buttons because that's how Nintendo works. I think it might work the other way, actually. Let's have a look. I'm a little worried the controls ain't going to work, but we'll find out in a minute. Again, that's the thing with emulation, you know. Yep, so it's working. You press the B button as an A button on Switch. That's how Nintendo operate. So anyway, that was simple, wasn't it? We just EmuDeck's just installed it all. All we've done is given them the ROM file. It's working. If only it was that easy with everything else. How the hell did we come out of the whole thing? That's the trouble. So this is an issue I've had with EmuDeck in the first place, EmulationStation. I have to, every time I want to quit a game, I'm having to quit the actual app, but there are key combinations you can do. I think where you press 2 keys together, you can manually configure that. So what I want to do is just quit the app. I don't think it's let me do it. But yeah. Again, there are workarounds, but that's what I figured out so far. Oh, I thought it'd quit the whole app. That's ideal if it hasn't. I think because I quit the app, it's really messing me about. Again, if you're on the Ally, you can do macros where you hold 2 keys and you can close it. This is doing me head in. I told you it can be a bit of a pain. Something went wrong displaying the content. Refresh. It might work. I'm just going to exit it. It's just easier if it lets me. Oh, this is the trouble you're going to have. You're going to get temperamental things. Oh, it's working now, so that's all right. But yeah, if you get this, you can get. Oh, error couldn't emulate. Has it been properly installed? Right, this is the problem. So what we can do, I think, if it's done it properly, other settings. Oh, this is what I would do as well. This before you go is press start where it says scraper. Go down to other settings. And what I do, I get that VRAM limit. It's really low. I turn that all the way up, especially for Switch. I don't know if it makes a difference, but you might as well put it up to 2 gig. Game media or directory. So if you have a problem with a specific emulator, you can do this as well. Alternative emulators and pick a different one for that system. But that's only if you really know you definitely want to do that. We need to get into the emulator itself. Game media directory. System random. I think what we're going to have to do, usually it would come up here with the emulators. For some reason, it's not. View media. I found it easier on the device, to be honest, because it allowed me to sort of exit slightly and I could mess about going to the emulator, but this is having a bit of an issue with it. Doesn't even want to close. Right, let's quit. So at this point we haven't got the BIOS set up, but we need to get into it. So it's one of these. We know which one it is. We've got Ryujinx. So where you went to collections, for instance, and we're emulators, and then we opened EmulationStation. Now you want to go to Ryujinx. It should open the app. Hopefully. It'll be just a blank canvas with like menus at the top. But I'm wondering whether it's going to work in desktop mode. Yeah, okay, so it works, thank God. So I'm going to try and make it bigger. See, make it bigger isn't doing anything, is it? Oh, it might do. So here we've got tools, which is where you install your firmware. Now, I'll show what it's like to install the firmware. It won't work, which is why I had a headache for quite a while. Again, you have to go to wherever you've got the firmware backed up. So what you're doing is getting your firmware files that we got from that other website. Mine's Switch, BIOS. and firmware 1900. We've also got the product keys underneath. So 1900, it still won't work because it'll say it hasn't got product keys, which is why them keys are really important. And what I didn't realize, because I was going through all those little menus and trying to figure out where to place the thing, within the folders, again, this through Reddit, I found it said load applications from file. I was like, all right. And that means that's where you need to put the files. Emulator BIOS. I've already got it set up. Opened file. It might be because I just opened it there, actually. Wait a minute. File, load application, load. Oh, no, it's not. Forget that. That's where you would load the game manually if you had to. But this is it. Open the Ryujinx folder. This is literally the folder that houses this emulator. This is literally where you've got to put it. Ryujinx portable bins, games, profiles, SDs. I'm not sure if this is what it's supposed to look like. Trying to think where mine are. I told you this gave me a headache last time. I think you've got to put it under firmware and then you put it under keys. We'll try. I'm going to try a couple of ways because I have to. To do a new folder called firmware, I think. I may be wrong. And we'll do another one called keys. Just to save hassle, I'm doing a key separate folder here. I'm also going to put a keys folder inside the firmware. Having too many folders isn't going to hurt, but it certainly helps. So then I'm going to right click, open the folder with the emulators. Again, I want that file. But we're not putting the file in this time. You have to extract the information. So I've extracted it already. So the firmware will be a load of files now. Right, we just want all them. So we just do Control All, or you can either drag your mouse all the way down, but you might miss one. So just do Control All. Then we want to copy it. And then we want that firmware folder. Put it in there. We allow that to finish. I'm hopeful it works. We may have to install it manually. We will actually still have to install it manually, I think. So we do that. And then we'll get them product keys we needed. I'm hoping to God it works because it can be an absolute nightmare. So we've got two. We've got product keys, product.keys, pod.keys, and then title.keys. And what I'm going to do, that keys folder I've put in firmware, I'm going to put it in there just in case. I'm hopeful they're in the right location. They may be in the wrong. And I've got another one I made keys here just in case. We'll see what happens. So now what we want to do, because the information's there now, we're going to try and install the firmware where it came up an error last time. Where are we? Firmware 1900. Oh, keys not found. I just can't even remember for the life of me where I put them. I'm just going to have to get it up on here. Wait a minute. This is what I'm saying. It even drives me mad. It's going to be something stupid. It always is. It'll be literally just one little folder that's in the wrong place or something. Oh, why has it got to play about? Oh, Steam menu. Library. Non-Steam game. Well, actually, we can do collections. Collections, emulators, emulation. Let's find the thing. Ryujinx. Open. So this is exactly the same way you would see the screen we just did there. It's just the same way through this device. And then I'll know what the folder looks like. So we'll open it here. Open Ryujinx folder. And like, for instance, mine actually shows the games files. But I'll still do the file bit at the top corner there. Open folder. SD card profile mods biz. So I've got the product keys and title keys on the front end, which I didn't have here. So these ones I've got here in the folder, it was just on the main page. So as soon as you open that folder, it should be there. Let's see if that works. Then we want to install the firmware. Oh, keys not found. Wait a minute, that's not good. Where have I put them? Games. Where the hell is it? If I put that there, oh right, I think we've got to go back. Right, this is what I'm saying. I'm going to send you in a loop because even I get caught up in it. It's not easy. So I think what it was that folder's where you got to put the product keys, if I'm understanding it right. Then you want to go back. This is an absolute nightmare. So where you had the EmuDeck installation. So we'll go back. So we go to your folder, wherever you installed EmuDeck. I put it on the F drive. You may put it on your C drive. You may put it on a memory card. You'll find it anyway. Then you go emulation. Now we've got a BIOS section, BIOS, ROMs, and all sorts. So we've got to go BIOS, but I don't think it is BIOS, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then we've got Ryujinx. Oh, wait a minute. So we ain't got Ryujinx. Wait a minute. I've just got to make sure. I've put it under Yuzu, but I'm not sure we needed to. No, okay, we didn't actually need. Wait a minute. It's the wrong file. It's that one that works, isn't it? Oh, what we got going on there? Firmware. Right. So anyway, just do it. Just do it these ways. We just do it. Ryujinx. It says keys there, so we'll put it in the keys folder. The keys. Place them in the box. We'll also. I don't know if it's worth making the firmware box. Let me just see if it works. No, it won't. I'm just wondering whether we need to do the whole file for the emulator. So where we've got keys written here in BIOS, right? It says BIOS, Ryujinx, keys. I'm going to do another folder called firmware. And we'll get the firmware folder, all that stuff again. I'm just going to end up copying these everywhere. Would help if I knew the folder. SD drive. Desktop. Because the problem is I would have put them in all the places just like as well. This PC, C drive, emulator. Oh, it's hard on this screen. You may want to plug. You may probably want to plug a mouse in. BIOS, Ryujinx, firmware. Yeah, I have done that in the firmware. In the keys, I've also put it on both sides of the keys. I'm just trying to match it now with what we've done. So where we've got these keys here, I'm also going to copy them to the front end just in case. And to save what I'm doing, I'm just going to keep jumping back and forward to here because if I end up doing every phase I did, it may be this is the one that worked and I didn't need to do anything else. So we're going to try and install the firmware again with the zip file, the 19.0. Oh, I've still got no keys. Okay, so that was in the Ryujinx folder. Now we're going to try and go into the Yuzu one because it's the other emulator. I think they're sharing similar resources, but I may be wrong. Again, copy the files in the firmware. I'm sure I've done it twice there. Yeah, I just went on a spree, right? I just started throwing the files everywhere because it was driving me mad that much. That I was like, you know what? I'm just going to copy files. And then we get the keys to the product keys. It is a frustration doing all this. But once it's done, it's like you don't have to worry about it ever again unless you update the firmware for the latest games. And it's like, oh, I've got to remember what I did. That's fun. So in the keys folder, paste the keys. I also do it on the front end just in case because it's so. I don't even know if the keys matter because we've got the keys in the right space. It's really the firmware at this point. Let's do the firmware again. That's after the Yuzu folder. Keys not found. I think it's saying keys not found. ROMs. We want switch. Problem is, we put them both in the BIOS folders and they're not there. I told you this is an absolute headache. Now I've got to try and open that Ryujinx again and figure out why it's not looking the same, because at this point it should work. We're here, we've got the folder available. I've got firmware. I'm wondering whether I've put the firmware files in the right place and the keys. Let me just see what it looks like on this end. Oh, why isn't it loading? Well, I seem to be having a problem with this. I may have to shut it down to get it working again. Oh yeah. Right, file. And then we want the folder. What does it look like? Product keys, title keys. Thing is, I've done everything I did before. All the keys are in the places I would say they should be. Portable, pod key, title key, 16 kilobyte, both 16 kilobyte. Let me just go here. And then we want the pod key, title key. Let's go system a minute. Ah, yeah, maybe. When you go system, there's two keys here. I'm hoping it's that. There's a system link in the folder for when you go to file, open Ryujinx folder. Then there's a shortcut that says system. I'm hoping that's the one because there's no other choices. Now I want to try and install the firmware. I know that's going to work now. Yeah, so now it says install. I know it's been a whole process here, and I apologize, but I had to learn this on the fly myself. There's literally no resource telling me how to do any of this. And the back and forward, if you just follow the back and forwards I was doing, though, what I will do is put timestamps in the video to say the correct way to install it. It must be an easier way to show that. But even I don't know what way just worked. I just put the folders, I just put the product keys everywhere, you know. I think that what it is, I think when you go, I'm going to say no to the firmware minute because I just want to show what I did. Effectively, what we want to do is go to file, open the Ryujinx folder, and then put where it says system here, there's a link, a shortcut. Put the product and title keys in the system folder. I think all this other stuff, it was irrelevant. And I'm not sure if you had to put the firmware files in the other bit. So I'm going to keep the whole video intact because I don't know if there's a stage missing. I don't know if you needed to put the firmware in the firmware. Last thing I want to do now is delete what I've done. But yeah, there's not. Then we will do the install firmware. And like I said, once it's done, though, you don't have to freaking worry anymore unless you update the firmware. But then it's going to be remembering what you did. So maybe make notes because even I forget. So now it's installed the firmware. Effectively, now it's become now this emulator has become a Nintendo Switch device. I could run the game from here because you can just do file load, but I'm going to do it within Windows. I mean, Steam, like I had initially. Right. So now we've got Ryujinx knows now that it's a Nintendo Switch, and hopefully the game should show up. It's in the right folder. Yeah. So we've got We've got Wonder. It shouldn't load it here. Oh, wait a minute. I know what's going on. We're not running it in EmulationStation. It still thinks we're going to load the emulator direct, which we don't want. We want to do everything we want to do everything the right way. So we want EmulationStation. Because effectively that's where all of our emulators are going to be sitting. Oh, what a palaver! I kid you not. This took me a lot longer last time. There's no one helping with it, you know. So now we click launch. Before it said nothing, didn't it? It said didn't work. Oh, couldn't find the emulator user. Has it been installed properly? Oh, wait. I got it. Thank God for that. So press menu and then go to, I think it's utilities. No, other settings. Yeah. Then go other settings, alternate menu, where it says alternate emulators, go on that, switch. It's got Yuzu as default. We want Ryujinx. So go down to Ryujinx and then go back. And now it's going to go, because we didn't install Yuzu. I mean, if someone wants to use Yuzu, do that. I've not used Yuzu before. So I'm using Ryujinx. And now it should load. Because effectively, it's trying to launch the game through the wrong emulator. I hadn't set that one up. So as you can see, we didn't get this far before. And once it's done, it's done. There are features if you go through the menus at the top here, where you can change some graphical settings and play with it, really. If you get performance issues, you can always like tinker. The other thing as well here, we can do options, and you can literally do toggle full screen. So we do full screen. Oh, it's made it worse on my computer. Oh, yeah. Again, remember that Mario games, I mean Nintendo games, the controller's backwards. So you do press the B to do A. And literally this is it. So if you add your portable device, it's just the same process, isn't it? It would just be a lot easier through this because mouse control. Oh, it didn't. I was going to say it didn't do this on my handheld.
Hey there!
Well, I'm getting a bit of a performance glitch here.
Where's the party?
I didn't get this with the Vulcan, with the thingy. What it is, you've got different. I don't know how you come out of full screen mode. Yeah. So what you can do is go options and there's settings if you wanted to. So let's say you're having graphical problems, you can go here. You've got Vulcan. You can change it to OpenGL if you're having issues with the graphics, for instance. Resolution scale, you can upscale it if you choose to. I wouldn't advise it really unless you really feel you need to. So that's your graphics, your CPU. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what the difference is between them. System, I want Europe because I think that's going to may affect the ROMs you install. I don't know. VSync I don't really like, so I'm going to take that off. Because the VSync's where sometimes you do get hiccups. It's supposed to make it smooth. Oh, DRAM size 4 gig. I'll probably leave it as 4 for now. If you get any problems, I think it might be worth increasing that. Let's do full screen.
Hey there! Where's the party? So many visitors today. Have a great time.
I think the stutterings I'm getting is probably more of a configuration problem with the CPU and the graphics. I've probably got to tinker a little bit. But as you can see, it's working now. So if you've got your handheld, it's the same thing. You know, I know it was convoluted doing the firmware, but it's a process, you know. And the thing is, this is what emulation's like. It's, you know, I never had anyone helping me with that one because the Switch was just driving me in a big circle. Like literally, I think I spent a whole day trying to figure it out because I couldn't figure out the firmware situation with the product keys. You know, with the Wii U, for instance, the product keys are individual for the game. What I would say is, for some weird reason, the handheld, I think, is more... I don't know about the settings, but it feels like the settings are more optimised on the handheld. Because I don't remember any stutter at all. But my system's NVIDIA, that's AMD, and I'm wondering whether that's got part of an issue with it. But yeah, as you can see, it's all up and running. I'm happy. I'm less likely to play emulators on my main computer because I have the handheld now. But it was probably a good idea to have it all set up myself. And actually, I might do. It's a bit like, I'll tell you what it's like when you've got it both set up. It's a bit like with the Switch itself, isn't it? When you dock the Switch and you put it on a telly, that's a bit like what I've got now with my gaming setup. I can still play the games on the bigger screen if I choose to. I think that's pretty neat. For me to do this video, it's allowed me to do that because I wasn't even thinking of doing it. But hopefully it's been helpful to people. I know people are going to be annoyed that back and forward would drive you nuts. Believe me, it drove me crazy. But at the end of the day, we get there in the end. And now at this point, all you've got to do is just keep dropping ROMs into the ROM folder. So you just go emulators, ROMs, Switch. And literally from there, you just put your ROM files in it. That's all you got to do. And then they'll appear on the thing. The only other thing you want to do is... Oh, I can't remember. I don't know if this game's going to come out now. Well, okay. Oh, this is quite temperamental on the PC. It's not showing me anything. Ask me why it's doing that. Right, it didn't exit last time. I'm hoping it exits because it's getting a bit temperamental, should we say. I should have just closed the entire... It's quite annoying, isn't it? I don't know why it keeps doing this. Like, what is the menu it's moving? But again, you won't have this problem on the other device. I never had this issue on the other one. This is just ridiculous. Right, the hassle you get. So what we want to do again, because I've already done it actually. Once you put games on, again, just remember to scrape it. Do the scraper. Make sure you put the systems you want. So if you've got to add more Switch games, put the Switch there, and then just start it, and it'll update the cover. I don't know why I'm not getting any cover designs at the moment here. Theme, linear, modern, slate, iconic. Oh, carousel, I think we want. Let me have a look. So we've got theme variant, text list flipped, carousel, grid. I think I was just messing about, testing it all. Oh, yeah, carousel. Okay, that's what you got to do. So start UI settings. After you've got this iconic theme style, you want carousel. The theme variant, you didn't want list. And that gives us this nice cover. And then should have the list still. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's got the... Let me see. Iconic carousel. Let me just get back to list. Ah, then you can put list. So once you go into that setting, for some reason, it just updates the whole thing. So just messing with that, toggling that, enables us to have this wonderful background. I don't think you can change these pictures, which I find a bit annoying, because I would rather change the Switch from this Cuphead. Theme color style. Oh, that's a whole other process anyway. I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's worth messing about with this because one of them I showed here, it says show hidden files. There was one I found that said, these UI settings. Here. Oh no, wait, wait, above. Enable toggle favorites button. There was one where you could have the favorites appear. Blur background, enable. Oh, game collection settings. I'm sure it's that. Yeah. So game collection settings, automatic game collections, do all games, favorites, and last played. And that allows you to have these extra boxes that appear. And it says all your games now. So every game you own will be there. Your favourite games will be your favourites. You just favourite it with the Y button, I think it is. So let's say I want that to be the favourite. There you go. Let's put a star next to it. And then it'll go under your favourite section. But you get, you know, little tools, really. I think it's worth having. You obviously pick whichever ones you want there. Yeah, and some games, the covers don't work for some reason. It may just be the way it's titled. It could be any reason. But yeah. Hopefully it's been of use to people.